I have a lot of people who, I mean, a lot, but like I have a certain number of people
You
who
do you give the Twitch one or the YouTube one?
I usually give the Twitch. Should I give the YouTube instead?
Whichever. I'm just wondering.
Okay. No, on Twitter I usually put the Twitch link.
Twitch one, okay.
Oh, and did you hear? This is so sad. This Korean artist that I really liked.
I saw you giving a memorial to them.
Yeah. I didn't. It's funny because I never talk about it, but I follow a lot of artists on Instagram. That's basically what I use Instagram for, is for like looking at artists. And he's one of the ones. He's just a really, really fucking awesome artist. And he was only I didn't know this obviously until he died, but he was only a year older than me.
What was his thing? What did he do?
He did like very I put him like in one of my on my profile. You'll see like a couple of things he does. He will just like start drawing on like stream or whatever.
Oh, he didn't have a claim to fame. Like he wasn't like.
I mean, he's an illustrator. He does illustrative art.
But okay.
I don't know if he's a comic artist, but he does illustrative art. Like it's some of it is sci-fi, some of it is fantasy. But yeah, I don't know if he like specifically had, but he did have a big following because he just does really cool art. Like some of it's like kind of surreal,
Right.
But yeah, he freehands it, which is fucking amazing. There's a lot of artists won't tell you they use, they reuse their own art, like to add to art, or they'll use references, projectors, and he just would freehand in front of everybody.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you look at my Twitter, you'll see I put a few gifs of that. Really cool.
What is happening? Did I ever tell you how much I hate technology?
I know you do. I do too. Oh, did you Google Velma today?
I didn't. Why?
Just Google the word Velma, the name Velma, just that.
Just tell me.
I'm not, okay, it's one of the a little animation comes up.
Hold
on. Why you were like didn't trust me?
No, but I'm saying I'm not going to Google anything right now.
Okay.
I'm in the stream.
Okay. Oh, you are live?
Yes, we are live. People can hear us.
Oh my god. Okay. Hi everyone.
I told you.
Okay. Let me go to. That's hilarious.
That is funny. Okay, so there's a little animation that pops up like the cat. It was like the cat paw thing.
Hello, everyone. A little animation? What do you mean?
Forget it. We'll talk offline about that.
Okay. Wait. So I will. Are you on Twitter? I mean, are you on Twitch or live now?
We are live on both Twitch and YouTube.
Okay. All right. Let me share the link right now.
Timmy is awesome. Welcome in. Shaolin Iceboxer. Holler. Lanio. Hope you're having a lovely day. Let us do this. Like a Buddhist.
Woo woo. All right. So that link. At Rogue Planet 18. About interview with the vampire.
We're going to start in just any minute, guys.
I like the music.
Yeah, isn't it cool? What can I say? Keep it real. Auntie Cat, welcome in. Demon Omega, hello from the graveyard. We're going to be starting our stream in just 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, my friends.
Hello, everyone. I think we should probably talk about episode 1 first.
Yeah.
And then, no, I'm just saying, warn people before we start talking about episode 2.
We'll get into the whole thing.
Because, I realized, I was like, this is going to be big. Some people might get pissed. Like, they can't access episode 2 yet, and we're talking about it.
Right. Okay. Did you give out all your links?
Well, I put it on Twitter. Twitter obsessed. And I really did dream about being on Twitter the other night.
That said, we're going to get into that. All that amazing information we're going to get into in just a sec. We, of course, got to do our little theme song. We got to do the whole thing. We got to do the whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Mayday! Come in! If anyone can hear me, my starship has been pulled into the anomaly. I find myself in a strange new world. It is a world with no sun, no stars. It is a world of anime. Comics. Here we go! Gaming. Movie. This world is the
Rogue Planets
with your host, the Fat Mantis HD.
Hello and welcome to Rogue Planet. I am your host, the Fat Mantis, now in HD. I hope you're having an amazing Wednesday night. This is the nerdcore, hardcore show that talks about all things that are fit to print in the nerdum community. And because of October, we're doing all horror. We're doing our march to Halloween. Today is day 5 of Halloween. And I have an amazing guest to talk about an amazing show today. Tonight, I've got Gray Winthrop of the True Crime award-winning podcast, Grim Inquiries. How are you, Gray?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yo, it's always a pleasure. It's funny. I just had you on a couple weeks ago about Andor.
Yeah, that's right.
And then now I have you back. So, guys, I don't want you to think that she's going to become a staple of the show because she's not.
Don't get too comfortable.
Don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable. Not, don't get comfortable. Hello, Auntie Cat sending that love. We got Drinking Death Wish Espresso with Beldam Chocolate Skull Bomb. I don't know how Demon Omega always gets the best coffees, but he really does. It's hot chocolate. And then AJ says, Rogue Planet. Hello, guys. Before we go any further and we get into Anne Rice's interview with the vampire, I would love it if you guys like this channel, like this video, subscribe to the channel, keep tuning in to Voice of the Fat Mantis and Rogue Planet every Wednesday. So, Gray, you have just finished the second episode. Am I correct here?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I was not expecting this at all. So AMC announces they're going to do an interview with a vampire show. And of course, there are going to be changes that are going to be made. And I thought we were going to watch our typical adaptation, right? I'm going to just say already, spoiler alert, I was blown away. How did you generally feel about the show?
Oh, I loved it. I loved the first. As soon as I saw the first episode, I think I contacted you pretty fast. I was like, "This is so awesome! I loved it." And then, I saw the second episode. I'm like, "Oh, I love this even more!" I really can't say it. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, so they're doing something sneaky because of all the craziness in terms of the streaming world.
Mhm.
They did this crazy thing. If you guys have AMC, which is on basic cable, you can watch the first episode. But if you have AMC Plus, you get an episode ahead.
Mhm.
So I don't know about you guys, but we're going to talk about both episodes. We're going to let you know if there's any spoilers for episode 2. We're going to start with episode 1, but if you have AMC Plus or Live a Pirate's Life, you've probably seen episode 2.
We're not telling you to do that, but if you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for starters, Gray Winthrop, please tell me, were you a fan of the books when growing up?
Oh yeah. When I was 12 years old, I believe, I bought the first 3 books. The Queen of the Damned had just come out. I'm like aging, like telling my age right here. But but yeah, Queen of the Damned had just come out. I bought all 3 books. My mother almost threw them away because she is very inconsistent about what her Christianity.
Inconsistent when she is very religious and when she's not.
Exactly. It's hilarious because she later became a huge fan of Anne Rice.
Oh, right.
But when Queen of the Damned came out, she was like, "What is this garbage? I should throw these books away." So I remember like pulling my mom's arm because she was going to go to the dumpster down the hall from our apartment and literally just throw it down with the trash into the basement. So yeah, like I love those books. I got busted in school for reading those books.
You got busted?
Class.
Was it because it was vampire content? Or
No, just like they were like, I know this is very popular right now because yeah, like this was I'm not going to say it's the year, but at that time before the movies came out, this was like the best-selling books on the market. It was a huge deal, and so somebody was like, I know this teacher was like, I know they're very popular, but you have to pay attention in class. I'm like, okay, whatever. You got me.
Mad Cat says, hail to the chat. AJ Rebel, believe it or not, says Argmatey, referring to living the pirate's life. Demon Omega says, I got spoilers of Milk Duds. Matt continues to say, hail Laney, hail Shaolin. Hail AJ. Okay, look at this love coming back around.
Hail all of you.
Seeing this stuff in the chat. So, okay. So you were old like me. So when you were younger, Anne Rice was what vampires were, and they weren't like sparkly, crazy things.
Right. Yeah.
Did you get into the sparkle sensation that is vampires, though?
Well, okay. So first of all, I am a lover of vampires, probably due to Anne Rice. Mm-hmm. And the role-playing game that is, I would say, the most based on her interpretation of vampires, which is, of course, Vampire the Masquerade originally.
Right. I would say that it's strongly based off of that and vampires. Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Right.
And
right.
Anything else is just like secondary, but those 2 things.
Yeah. Maybe a little Carmilla, but even that is not as much.
Right.
So yeah, like they keep it real. Anne Rice kept it pretty real. She had very specific rules, which I love. I really don't like. True Blood was a fun show, but I also had read they called them the Suki Stackhouse, I guess, Southern vampire books.
Yeah.
She's more of a slapdash urban fantasy kind of writer where there are no real rules. Everything's very
rules go out the window when she's tired of them, and she never really thought things out.
Exactly.
Yes. And so it's funny that she tried really hard to make it seem like they were believable creatures, but at other times make them the most magical thing ever. And
right.
Yeah, there was this. I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, there are some changes in this adaptation that I find interesting,
Oh,
and
they made some big changes.
yeah, it changes the dynamic between Lewis and Lestat, but in general, I think that it stays true to the books.
Is
The
it
change,
less gay?
it is so gay, so
Well,
gay.
then
I mean,
that's
let's
really
just.
what Anne Rice was writing about. That
Oh,
was
but you know what? Here's the thing. When she first started the series, the first book, Interview with a Vampire, came out in 1976. I just looked it up because I thought it was 73, but it was actually
it's
76.
crazy that it was that. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I didn't even exist at the time. So
Right. So the story goes that she had lost a daughter to leukemia, cancer of the blood,
right.
a little girl, and she was she was already a writer, but she was kind of like feeling very sad and like depressed, and this came out of her sadness for her child's death.
Oh my god! A child who will never die. And
Yes.
I believe that word, that phrase, is literally said both in the novel and in the movie adaptation.
So
With
yeah,
Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Kirsten Dunst of all people.
yeah, it's very poignant that that happened to her, and this is.
Oh, I didn't even know that backstory of the Anne Rice.
Yeah. I'm a big Anne Rice fan too.
Yeah, Matt says, I love the Anne Rice books. Twilight is pure trash, mediocre writing at best. I have zero interest in the show, though. The Snooki novels were okay.
Suki. Yeah, her name was.
Yeah, the Suki. Suki. I don't know.
Yeah, Suki Stackhouse.
Snooki is the girl from
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore. And he said, okay, same difference, same time frame. They were popular.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it. They've changed things. They've taken Interview with a Vampire. They've challenged the supremacy of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Kirsten Dunst's movie, which is beloved. It's beloved in my heart. I know that.
Yeah.
They have recast it and made all these changes. And so what is the biggest, craziest change in your opinion?
I don't think it's a crazy change. Once you see it, it makes a lot of sense. They have basically, first of all, they have moved up the time frame of the beginning of the story because, this obviously goes through many years because Lewis and Lestat are together for many years. But the novel, Interview with a Vampire, starts in 1791.
Right.
The show starts in 1910. Okay. And the biggest change, I would say, is Louis's origin. I'm going to call him Louis because that's how they say his name in the show. But yeah.
I'm going to call him Louis. That's how
Lestat calls him. Right? Lestat would say Louis, but everybody else calls him Louis. So anyway.
SMH, welcome to the stream. He says they'll never be Maverick. They can't be Maverick.
Nobody can be Maverick.
But can they be the American Lestat?
That's a good question.
Because I've got to say this. You're looking at skin color and cultural of white and black, right? The thing that irks me is it doesn't irk me. I'm fine with it. But Tom Cruise's performance, he was very much, even though he's playing a European, is clearly an American.
Oh, absolutely.
Pure American vampire, just talking about Europe. This new guy is so European, I want to punch him in the face.
Yes, the French accent may not be modern French, but it is very pretentious and old-fashioned.
Right,
and
right. It's either bad French accent, or like you're saying, he may predate French and the original book Old French.
I will say though that it's funny when he doesn't do it as much in the second episode in this as the first, but I did take notice that when he speaks French, it is kind of like English, a person speaking French. You know what I mean? Like it's like when you hear an American speaking Spanish, they're not gonna get the nuance of the accent or whatever.
Also, over pronunciations.
Right.
When somebody says
yeah,
Espanol, like they're going hard. Yeah, I feel that. I still love it. I love what I'm seeing, and so now they've made Louis a black man. And it is much further in the timeline.
Right.
As the novel and the movie pointed out, when Louis was turned into a vampire, they didn't even consider themselves Americans.
Right, exactly.
And it wasn't until years later that they're like, oh, we're considered Americans now. Isn't that novel?
Yeah.
However, this Louis,
Mhm.
Black Louis, grows up in New Orleans, but it's very modern New Orleans, right?
Right. Well, modern
Well,
for that
1810.
time. Yeah.
I mean
No, it's
1910. Right,
yeah,
right.
1910. Here's the thing that I love about the updated timeline is that they filmed on location in New Orleans.
Mhm.
It feels like it's, basically the French Quarter, Storyville, that whole area is untouched from that time period. Jackson Square, they filmed there. It feels because I went to college in New Orleans. I spent 6 years in total in New Orleans.
Oh,
It
cool.
absolutely feels like you're in New Orleans, and yes, it does feel a bit like a Westworld, New Orleans, but
I mean, that's a movie set for you. That's absolutely
right.
movie set.
Yeah, it's movie set, but because they filmed in location, you feel like this is actually New Orleans. I could go there and see these places. I loved it because Neil Jordan's movie was great, but New Orleans was, as I said to you earlier, a mud pit in 1791. It was not what you see in the movie. It's not, it was not what you see now. As a piece of history.
So one thing they're going to have that I think will be missing, but I said is that one thing I really loved about the novel Interview with the Vampire, and it's slightly mentioned in the movie, but the movie it's not long enough to really do this. That throughout Interview with the Vampire, he keeps talking about the way America is changing.
Right.
And when he's transformed, he doesn't even consider himself an American. And then suddenly, he's after years later, like, we're Americans now. Oh, look at all this. Everything's changing. And he talks about how everything, the world is changing. Slaves were set free. All this crazy stuff is happening around him.
Yeah.
And so we're going to miss that in this.
Yeah.
Because the novel, I think, it's about America, right?
Right. But I would say, I like this version of Louis better. I like the fact that he is a black vampire, gay vampire in New Orleans. It's not like people were nicer to black people in New Orleans at that time than the rest of the country. So it's I know what you're thinking. Yes, episode 2 deals with it more, but because he becomes a vampire at the very end of the first episode. Spoiler alert.
And now
the title of let's get this out of the way. The title of the book and the show and the movie is an interview with Louis the vampire.
Yes.
So, spoiler alert, he becomes a vampire.
Well, I mean, obviously, the interview starts where he already is a vampire.
Right.
And, oh my God, that's a crazy update too, right?
Yes, exactly.
So so in the original book, the journalist is not only a young guy, but he's drinking at a bar when he's people watching for this book he wants to do, where he focuses on just different people throughout America, and he likes Louis' swagger, so he starts following Louis because he wants to interview him, and that's how the interview happens.
Right.
But in this, they have it where, what up, Hold Up TV? Greetings and salutations. We're talking about your favorite property, Interview with a Vampire. And now I found this very interesting that they do this thing, spoiler alert, where they had themselves have an original interview.
Right.
In the 70s or something, right?
Right. Back in, I believe they're saying 1973 in a gay bar in San Francisco.
Yeah. They actually had the original interview.
Yeah.
And now they're meeting up like 50 years later.
Right.
To have a more extensive, more comfortable interview.
Right. When I saw that, okay, so the interviewer's name, that's another very interesting thing, is that in the original novel, they never give the name to the interviewer.
Right.
Later in the series, I believe he comes back in Queen of the Damned, you find out that his name is Daniel, right?
Yeah.
I won't give spoilers for the second and third book, because if you want to go read the books, they're great. You absolutely should.
Absolutely amazing books.
But I will do spoilers for the.
Just warning: it's heavy on its homoerotic tension.
Yes.
And so here's what I'm saying: that is heavy on its homoerotic tension. So is the movie. It's not even tension; it's straight up. They go all the way.
Yeah.
in this
And
show.
Lestat is definitely pansexual, but Louis is definitely gay. Let's get that out of the way. Yeah. So I do believe that the change that they made. So let's get this out of the way. Louis in the book, he was in 1791 a plantation owner who owned slaves, kind of out in the bayou, you know.
Yeah.
He was kind of a whiny guy, but he did have a reason because his wife and child had just died of
Right.
some plague or whatever people get sick of, you know, in 1791 from. So he was like kind of in mourning, getting drunk. He would go to New Orleans proper and get drunk and wasted because he was a sad boy, right? Now, this is very different from the show's Louis, who his family is alive and they live like in the Garden District. And I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe the mansion that they live in is Anne Rice's old home that she had.
Oh, damn!
For
You
many
know
years.
a lot about this woman.
Yeah,
I did not.
I mean,
I did not
you know, yeah. It's not even like, okay, so here's the thing. When I lived in New Orleans, the first thing that happens is someone tells you where Anne Rice's house is, and you have to go by Anne Rice's house.
Well, I think I told you this, that I used to do kung fu with a girl who would brag that she actually broke into her or onto her estate.
I mean, the gate is not that high. Yeah, but
so she said that she came to New Orleans. It was late. She really wanted to meet her. She was obsessed with the books. She broke over the fence and then knocked on the door. And Anne Rice, even though she did call the cops, was nice about it. And she said, "Thank you for being a fan, but next time I would love it if you tried to see me during the day or something. And please don't break into my property."
That's actually horrible.
Oh yeah, the girl that I'm talking about is a little nutty. And when I was hearing that too, I was like, "That's a horrible story." You just
I mean, honestly, I think that might not be true too, because she did have an assistant, I'll tell you right now, who went with her everywhere. So I don't know if she would open her front door herself. It might be that the assistant.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably more to it. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, who really
but
knows?
anyway, yeah, she doesn't live there anymore, obviously. Don't harass the owners of the house right now. But yeah, the house actually also features as part of the story in the Mayfair Witches. So we might see that again, actually.
Right. And
anyway.
actually, we got some trailers for the Mayfair Wishes for those who are fans of those books as well.
Yeah. But getting back to it. So yeah, Louis in this version of the story, it's 1910. His mother, sister, and brother all live in a house in the Garden District, while he is in Storyville, like basically the French Quarter. The black part of the French Quarter, right? And he is a pimp and like basically a brothel owner.
So let me ask you, what's worse? What is morally worse? A brothel and pimp owner or a slave owner?
Yeah, see, here's the thing that I like about this version of Louis is that he is more realistic and sad and ashamed of the fact that he is a pimp. He says that he is actually ashamed of himself. In the first episode, during his confession, he absolutely is ashamed of himself. And he feels, bad that his family disapproves of it, obviously. He feels bad that he wasn't able to, because so he says in his history, like his little backstory, his family were originally sugar plantation owners, but they were driven out of that life because when their father died, they weren't able to hold on to it because they were black. Like they were basically driven out of their plantation. They moved to New Orleans and he was forced to take care of the family by being a pimp, and he was very successful at it. He's kind of a tough guy, at least, outwardly. Louis in the book is this sad, sensitive soul who hadn't killed anyone, hadn't beaten people up like this version of Louis would have. He's not aware that he's homosexual, at least that we know of in the book, before he meets Lestat.
Yeah, so you remember earlier you said Anne Rice goes for it. I feel like Anne Rice doesn't I think she avoided what she really wanted to talk about, which was homosexual men.
Absolutely. Yeah.
She doesn't flat out say it at any point.
Right. It's very subtextual, their relationship. She never talks about any actual sexual acts
And
between Louis and
this show
Lestat.
is like going for it.
Yeah,
They're really going for it. Anne Rice was scared, but remember, it was another time. It was like the 70s.
exactly. Yeah,
So that
yeah.
was considered racy, just having two men who hugged and caressed a lot all day long.
Yeah.
Was like very racy in the 70s, right?
Right.
Unless you were part of that, like, Studio 54 crowd.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, sacre bleu. But so what I really like about this Louis is that he's so manly. He's very
Right.
manly, very
Yes.
manly homosexual. And so he's a pimp. He beats people up. He carries a blade in his cane.
Yeah.
Yes. He gambles. He's ready to throw down at any moment.
Yeah.
I think that's what the story needed.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, like the fact that he was a gay black man who was trying to, put on a front.
Rogue Radio has entered. Welcome, Rogue Radio. I have a feeling Rogue Radio was a fan of the original Interview with the Vampire as well. But you were saying, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So yeah, the fact that he was a gay black man who had to hide who he was, who was like dealing with stigma, having to debase himself to white people in order to succeed in life, right?
Yeah.
I think that that has a lot of significance, and it's really interesting the way it's portrayed in this show. So yeah, they gave Louis some depth, I think, by making his character a different person.
And so I'm going to say something. I don't know if Hold Up TV is actually listening or whatever, but I once on our fanboy modeling school, to show me and Hold Up 2 together, I said I'm fine with race bends as long as it doesn't dominate the new character or eliminate something from the old one. However, they didn't just make this guy a black vampire. They didn't just make Louis black. They made him black and made the story very much about being homosexual and very much about being black.
Yes.
And the hardships of being a black man, doing what you want to do in 1910, but also being out of the closet.
Right.
And one would think, and normally I think from my prior statement, it would seem that I'm a hater, that I hate on that. But I actually love this. I feel like it made Louis a way more deep character.
Yeah.
It made their whole passion more complicated.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it.
There were a lot of little things about it. Like, for instance, his mother is kind of like annoyed that his sister is going to jump a broom when she gets married. And that's considered like a slave thing. That's like a peasant thing.
Yeah.
And they want to be genteel, like, Southern, nobility, And so the sister, because she's marrying this, like, hardworking kind of like, middle class guy, is going to jump a broom where she gets married. Her mom's kind of disdainful of it. When Louis gives his sister and her new husband tickets to go on a ship to Europe for their honeymoon, I don't know if you noticed, but it was called the Black Star Lines. There was an actual ship line that catered to rich black people at that time. And that was
there was segregation, so they couldn't go on the white.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I really love those little touches.
I really do love that. I absolutely love that. I love his story. And so if anyone felt passion when either reading or watching the old movie, because the movie, definitely there is passion in Louis' story. Brad Pitt telling the story of being without his family and crying and being a sad boy, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying there is great passion in this too, this story of his family. And, obviously time is dilated. So we're 2 episodes in, but we're not that far into his life. I can't wait to see how this whole thing pans out with his family.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on with his family.
Yeah. You see a lot in the first episode and the second episode. Things move along, time passes.
So I do not. There's a certain thing I don't want to spoil for anybody. It shocked me when it happened. But there is somebody in his life who passes on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that was involved with fuckery or no fuckery?
So
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I think that because I don't want to spoil too much, but I do think that it would be realistic, to me at least, that this person passed naturally and it wasn't an involvement of the devil.
The devil, yes. Because when you see it, you're like, oh, this is some fucked up shit. But it
Yeah.
is possible. It is possible. I mean,
It is, yeah, it is possible, and I don't think that they'll ever really address it. But I do think that it's plausible that there was no outside influence to this person's death in episode 1. Yeah.
Lainey says fuckery. Okay, so I think Lainey is voting for fuckery. You know what the problem is with this whole thing is when you're hanging out with the devil, anytime something weird happens, you're gonna blame the devil, right?
Yeah.
Even if the devil isn't to blame, he's gonna get blamed. I have a feeling that's gonna happen.
Yeah. So another spoiler. Another thing I really enjoy about this is that Louis, when he meets Lestat has no problem showing off his powers, right?
Yeah.
So he'll do things like slow down time or stop time. He talks to him telepathically. Yeah, and Louis just like, oh, I'm just hanging out with this French devil. It is what it is, you know. Like he does it. I mean, even though he asks him how he does it, and Lestat doesn't tell him how he does it, he's just like, I guess this is who this guy is, you know, kind of like. And then when he goes to confession, which is one of the best scenes in the show.
Oh, what did it mean? And well played. The actor
God.
who does Louis does such a good job in the confession scene.
Yeah, I would have never expected that kind of acting from Grey Worm. Let me just say that.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, he played Grey Worm in Game of Thrones, and if you're not remembering that name, he's the head of the Unsullied. He's like the main Unsullied guy.
Right.
And so in that, he unfortunately they gave him such a thick accent in that show, you wouldn't even guess that they're the same guy.
Yeah.
Because you know they make Grey Worm so no offense, foreign or uneducated. You wonder if the actor actually knows how to speak English.
He is British in real life. I think he did a good job with the accent. For anybody who's wondering, he does not use a Cajun accent because what I believe, he uses what sounds like a tough guy American accent. Mm-hmm. What I believe is that he is using what's called a New Orleans Yat accent. It's from the phrase "where yat," right? That's a New Orleans thing. Yeah. Where yat? So in Nolans, everybody says, "Hey, where yat?" Yeah. So, but anyway, the Yat accent actually came from working class white people from Ireland and Germany who came to America. Most of them came from they immigrated to New York first, you know, because that's where everybody came to first in those days. And then they came down and they would immigrate to New Orleans because that's where the jobs were at that time.
Basically, the only immigrants that stayed in New York were the lazy ones.
Yes.
They're like, well, I'm here. I don't need to go anywhere. So, and that's why New York is overpopulated.
Right. So people believe that that Yat accent, which sounds somewhat like a New York accent, originated that way. And so I think that he specifically puts on that accent to sound like a tough guy and also to be like a bit different from his family who have like genteel, as I'll say it again, Southern accents. They don't want to sound like their country. You know, they want to sound like proper Southern ladies and gentlemen, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that's very interesting. And I think it was a deliberate choice by the director.
Yeah. I think it's well played. I have no issue with it. I think it is funny that in this modern age, when people are judging movies or television or whatever, they are all of a sudden are an expert on whatever. So if they see a courtroom thing, they're an expert lawyer and they get to say how the show is wrong. Everyone's a historian that gets to tell us how New Orleans was in 1910, even though they've never been there,
right?
Or know anything about it. Like they know what the accents are. I usually have faith in the people doing their homework.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you an example. In Dahmer, there was a scene that even I was like, well, that's not what I had heard. However, I have faith that you know that Ryan Murphy Productions did better research than the infographic show on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have faith in this. I think this is going good. I really enjoyed episode 1.
Yes.
And I greatly enjoyed episode 2. It was like getting better. It was getting better each episode.
Yeah. So yeah, I will be the first to say I am not the biggest fan. When I first read Into the Vampire, I enjoyed it. But once you read Vampire Lestat, it's harder to sympathize with Louis, and it gives you a whole different perspective on
Wait,
book Louis.
oh, because of well, I'm assuming that anyone has had to have seen the movie or the book, read the book.
Yeah.
So I would say you're saying the fact that he eventually kills or attempts to kill Lestat.
No, not it's not even that. It's that. So, for instance, the fact that he's a plantation owner who owned slaves, he owned a lot of slaves on his plantation, and he was once he turns into a vampire, Lestat is very aggressive about wanting him to kill. Right. The fact that he's like this whiny, he does absolutely whine about the fact that he has to kill people. I feel like it's kind of hypocritical when you own slaves to be like, I don't want to be a murderer. I'm a sensitive gentleman, you know.
I think they're both completely different things, though.
But you know what? I do think that when you own people's lives, you're kind of a horrible person.
Yeah, but I don't think people reflected on that.
Oh, yeah.
When they grew up around that, they didn't reflect. They didn't
Right.
reflect on whether it was right or wrong. They were just like, "This is how the world."
Oh, yeah, but think about it. The interview is taking place in the 70s, and he's still acting like he's morally superior to Lestat. You know?
I would argue that someone who goes on a killing spree every night is worse than a slave owner. Especially since supposedly, according to the books, Louis was, and I'm using this. You know, obviously, I don't believe it or whatever. I'm using it as best as I could. A good slave owner, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but you know how they were driven away. They rebelled because they were like, "There's these two fucking blood-sucking demons on our property. Get the fuck out of here!"
But remember, he had like 8 girlfriends in the slave pens, and you know what I'm saying? He's got his slave girls going, Louis, you do not visit the slave pens anymore. What's wrong?
You mean he's a rapist. But anyway, I won't get on my abolitionist rat right now.
Yeah, no, but here's what I'm saying. Everyone in the book is wrong, but that's the best part about a vampire.
Yeah.
The story is that no one's good. There's no good guy.
Right. And see, that's the thing is, you know, I think it's a deliberate choice by Anne Rice to show these very different perspectives of the same events. You know, first you hear Louis' side, you're like, oh, this poor guy. Lestat was a fucking monster who abused him for like 70 years. And then you go and you read Lestat's story and you're like, wow, Louis was a little bitch. He just constantly complained and he didn't understand that Lestat, you know, he did things for a reason.
I'm just saying, I feel like on the hierarchy of sins, also, Lestat should have explained it. In this show, he's explaining it better.
Yeah.
But in the book, he does not explain that. He's like, I know what's in their hearts, and they're evil. Trust me.
Okay, so can I drop a episode 2 spoiler right now?
Yes.
You guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so because I think it's a very important to the story. A difference between the book and the this show that I think is very important. I believe the movie also didn't talk about this at all. The fact that Louis can read minds. He could not in the book or the movie.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. You're right. He did not get, and you know, as they say in the book, the dark gift was different for every vampire.
Right. Yeah.
So and he did not have the power that Lestat had, and Lestat did not tell him what was in these people's minds. That's the thing that's messed up.
Yeah,
I think that's really weird of Lestat not saying it's all right to kill this guy. He's evil. I read his mind, which he should have said.
Yeah.
Right. But in this, they changed a lot of stuff. But I did notice that. I was like, I don't think he could read minds in the book.
Right.
So he learns it very easily.
Yeah.
How to read minds. Hold on. We've got Mad Cat over here. He's got some questions for us. First one. So I had to bounce. How woke is this show? How political does this show get? Is there any intersexuality in intersexuality?
Intersectionality.
Sectionality.
Yes.
I hate that word.
So I don't know how much you heard earlier, Matt. I do think that switching up, making Louis a pimp, and the fact that he is a black man who has to hide the fact that he's gay, makes sense in the show. I can't tell you how it's not about preaching wokeness. it's just a story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I think however, though, I think a lot of people nowadays think that just changing a character from white to black already is woke, right? That gets
Right,
on the
but
nerve.
they've completely changed this guy's backstory.
Right,
You
and
know?
I like that he's a pimp instead of a slave owner.
Yeah. Oh, I
Um,
like that too.
and
I
I
like the
do,
fact that he has a living family. You know, I like the
yeah,
fact that he has a lot of guilt around his family, and a lot of guilt around Christianity too.
yeah.
You
But
know,
you will, Matt, you will see a story. A lot of the story, or at least his side of the story, is about being a black man in America. It
yeah,
just is, and that's how it is. It's Can we define intersectionality? Did I say it right?
yeah. Okay, so I don't know how Matt defines it. It's kind of weird that you're asking Matt. I'm gonna ask tell
Yeah,
you.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
asking you. Is I feel like I hear people use it different ways all the time, and I'm
because
like,
I mean, Matt, I don't know if you know this, but we're both mixed race. So like
yeah,
it's kind of weird that you're. Anyway, go ahead. Intersectionality generally means that when you talk about racism, for instance, you should also be aware that class intersects with racism, right? For instance, feminism. It's kind of why you hear people like denigrate white feminism, quote unquote. Um, so yeah, when you talk about feminism, you have to realize that there are differences in how feminism is perceived by, say black people and how white people, right? They have like different races, different classes have different issues, right? They have different perceptions of the world. So intersectionality deals with that. I don't think that it's a bad thing to yes,
SMH just said,
I
"Oh, are you half cat?"
am a mixed race, Bengal and ginger. I don't know.
Thank you for that, SMH. Yeah.
Oh, I
So,
appreciated
in terms of
that.
so there is definitely class stuff is being talked about in here.
Yes.
I don't love sectionality talk. One, because I can't pronounce it, but also two is that in order to accept it, you also have to forget that non-racial issues can be about class as well.
Right.
So
But I'm saying what I'm saying is
no, I'm not. I'm arguing against you. I'm just stating why I don't like that. I think that is uh, I don't know, a misleading term that is taught to supposed liberal arts educated kids in college. That as soon as the first person to use that phrase forgets that when they say white has multiple classes
but
in
that's
it.
what
Yeah.
I mean that's what I'm talking about. That yeah. Um you can shit on pardon me, I said shit. You can say bad things about white people, you can make blanket statements about white people, but intersectionality would say you have to consider that there are some white people who don't have clean water in their communities, who live in the Appalachians, and they have the meth and drug problems to deal with. They don't have the educational opportunities that a rich white person in New York City would have.
Right. Like
Right.
there used to be that blog that I used to love, stuff white people like.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's a white dude making fun of other white dudes. But if you notice, he's talking about upper middle class and above.
Right.
He's not ever talking about someone from a trailer or something. And that's his
Right.
joke. But you know what I'm saying? And so it is interesting. But SMH had another question. He says, wasn't Louis a noble? So maybe he felt he was better than Lestat. Now,
He was not
as I remember, I
noble.
think Lestat was a French noble.
Right.
And Louis was the son of a wealthy plantation owner.
Right. Yeah. Louis is just, like merchant class, I would say.
Yeah, I think they're
Yeah.
both high society from the worlds they came in. But I think actually in terms of a true noble, I think that would be Lestat was the one.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I remember I love that part in the Vampire Lestat, the sequel to Interview, when he starts talking about how he got turned into a vampire, and he was a young noble, and like his father was away on business, and there was like a wolf terrorizing the neighbors, and he had to go like find the wolf and kill it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just, and I was like, wow, this story got medieval. I wasn't expecting it to get medieval.
Yeah.
And like,
it is very his origins.
And he's saying how hard it was to be a noble because you had to take care of stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm dorking out. I love the whole franchise. I don't think that making him black did any damage to it. I love what they've done, and I love that it's different.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm totally into that. So basically the nature of religion is obviously hardcore into this.
Yes.
And so in my opinion, in the novel, the characters like knew of God, but they weren't very religious people, right?
Well, okay, so Louis and I guess and Lestat, because he's from medieval France, are Catholic. You
Yeah,
know.
they're Catholic dudes,
Yeah.
but they're not super Catholic.
No. I don't. Okay, so I do believe that Louis lost his faith when his wife and child died.
Okay, so if he was religious, I don't know if they let that be known.
Right.
But yeah, he's in a dark place in the start of the book.
I mean, he's a bit superstitious. He's at that time everybody's
Right.
superstitious, and
But,
he has a right to be.
But in this, religion is a major, particularly Catholicism, is a major part of it.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, Louis' brother at one point he takes a shot at a Baptist. The sister's talking about some dude, and he says, "Yeah, but he's a Baptist. He doesn't know what he's talking about." Do you like that kind of aspect? Because there's a major scene in a church.
Right.
That I think we both loved.
Everybody needs to go watch this episode, and the church scene is wild. From Louis' confession to what happens afterward. It's just a trip. I love it.
It is a trip.
Yeah.
It's a crazy trip.
Yeah.
Well, I love it.
So yeah, I do. Like I said, I think the fact that they're not beating you over the head with vampires are just like us. They have their issue. They have their problems, just like a gay black guy who is a pimp. Would have their issues. But there is some depth to the story in that. Yes, this is a man who has to hide, his sexuality, who has to deal with, like I said, debasing himself to white people in order to get ahead, who has to resort to violence to feed his family, who has to take advantage of girls who are, basically poor. Yeah.
I need to stop you there. I would argue now, just as you were arguing the case about the slave ownership, I would argue. I wouldn't say that he does violence.
You are the devil's advocate. You're actually the devil's advocate.
Now I'm being hard on Louis. He doesn't need to do violence to feed his family.
Right.
He's choosing to do violence to have a higher echelon of class.
Right, but
because
part
his
of
family
being
has money. He could be middle class if he wanted to.
Right, but here's the thing: part of being a pimp, you have to beat customers up.
Right, but I'm saying he could choose to have a lesser standard of life. It's just when he went on his own, he's like, "I'm going to beat people rather than work."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he's selling crack in the corners to sell just to feed his children or something.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But no, Matt says, do you guys think that the show is for non-Anne Rice fans? I don't know anyone that knows about the show. So I agree with Matt here. I feel like I'm in it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I sit around and wait for YouTube and Twitter to announce shows and movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the only reason I know about this.
So I did. Okay. So let me say right now, they've already renewed the show for season 2. So AMC does have faith in it. Right. But I do think other than I think all their marketing money goes to The Walking Dead. I really do.
I would agree with that.
But I would say
AMC really isn't in a channel. It hasn't been a channel for years. It's just The Walking Dead channel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because, this is the final season of The Walking Dead, and their other versions, Fear the Walking Dead, Tales of the Walking Dead, they're not ever going to do as well as the original, The Negan spinoff, they're going to do a Daryl spinoff. I don't think these things are going to do as well. But they are trying to expand, I think, with Interview with the Vampire. I think that they never get, for instance, Breaking Bad in the first season, nobody was watching that. Nobody remembers that it was only 6 episodes. There was the writer's strike. It got big. During the writer's strike, they decided to do Breaking Bad marathons of those.
Yeah, they had it on all the time. But
I remember like cleaning my house and like just watching Breaking Bad because that was all that was on AMC at some time,
I hate
like,
to be like a Mr. I'm so cool, but I was watching it since day one.
yeah, you're the indie guy.
Yeah, I'm the indie guy. Oh, but I was like that with all cable shows just because
Yeah.
I'm addicted to television.
Right.
So I was on Mad Men and all these other things
Right.
before anyone else really.
Yeah. No, so like I do think that, for instance, they put money into advertising for Mad Men because I think that Mad Men had a viewer base. Oh, there's a lot of nudity in episode 2, Matt. There's a little tiny bit of it in episode 1, but there are so many boobs and some butts in episode 2.
Oh yeah, there's there's a lot of
remember, he's a brothel owner. Louis is a brothel owner.
There's conversations. As a matter of fact, his first day on the job that we see is such a gross encounter. Remember, one of his hoes is having a problem with her or John, and he goes to settle it. And
it's
the shit they're talking about, you're like, oh god, this is gross.
Yeah, but it kind of sets the scene of this is his job. This is what.
Yeah, this is what his day is like.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But so yeah, there's cursing, there's extreme gore. It's not just like like a vampire politely biting a neck. Let me just tell you guys. At one point in episode 1, I was like, "Oh my god!" And you know what I'm talking about. I described it as a Mortal Kombat move. So
there's several. I feel like
finishing move. Yes.
I feel like there's just a lot of crazy murder and mayhem in it. When murders have to happen, they're not eloquent the way the movie did it.
Yeah.
Like there's literally a thing where like they have Lestat with like the little it's a knitting needle with a switchblade on it.
Yeah.
And he'd be caressing someone and just go, right? That is not how murder is here. This Lestat is a freaking psychopath.
Yes.
I would not want to hang out with that dude at a party because,
Yeah, but you know what? I find it so interesting how they're portraying Lestat, and I can't wait for them to tell his side of the story. I know it's going to take a while. It might take seasons to get to Lestat's version of the story. But oh my god, I would love to see them do Lestat's origin story and his life leading up to meeting Louis.
I would love that. I would absolutely love to see that, and I am hoping that they're able to do the sequels to the books with justice, because as we know, the movies that I keep referencing, they do a Queen of the Damned, which was just horrible. They skipped over one of the best books, The Vampire Lestat.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying now that this is a show, if this went 7 seasons, they might be able to tell the entire thing. The only problem is the last 2 books get so trippy and cosmic. I'm not sure if people who like Interview with a Vampire will like Nemnoch the Devil.
Yeah. They might go their own way.
Because I think I started to hate it when I was like, this is just nonsense at this point.
Okay, I'll say one thing for the audience. Should I say? You know what? It's a Queen of the Damned spoiler. Okay. You probably know what I'm about to say. Almost all the vampires are murdered by the Queen of the Damned, Akasha, the original vampire. She goes on basically a murder spree and decides that all the other vampires, other than a few chosen ones, have to die. There are too many vampires. She decides to cull the herd, and she kills thousands, I guess. Of vampires.
Right. And so that's where Gehenna Night in Vampire the Masquerade is supposed to represent. Mm-hmm. So Gehenna Night is the night that the antediluvians, the 13 antediluvians, one for each clan of vampires, are going to wake up out of their slumber and go murder all the younger vampires. Yeah. To start the cycle. They'll kill everybody and then they'll start they'll bite a couple of guys and they go back to sleep.
Right.
And they're like, we'll be up in another 1,000 years or something.
Yeah.
To cull the herd.
Like the Reapers in Mass Effect.
I love it. I love that whole thing. Which actually moves on to, my obsession. This series of books, at least, made me into like a vampire RPG dork. I used to play Vampire the Masquerade all the time, up until my adulthood, where I started playing Vampire the Requiem, which is a sequel to it.
Right.
And so I was one of those kids who wished he was a vampire. You know,
Now,
I think
yeah.
Lainey is currently one of those kids who wishes she was a vampire.
I would say, for myself, maybe when I was a teenager, I would have wished that. But at this point in my life, I'm poor, and I'll just say it: I'm fat. I have bad teeth.
Well,
I don't want to be. I don't want to be immortal. I don't want to be immortal. I don't.
Oh, wait. So here, I thought of this. So
Yeah.
it's true. You want to lose weight before you become a vampire.
Yes, I do.
Because
I do.
If you
And
get
I
fat at the
need,
point
like,
where you're-
whoever was making me a vampire would need to tell me how to make money as a vampire.
However, I believe that the cavities in your teeth would heal back.
Oh, well, I
doubt you'd grow your teeth back, but
Right.
if you're missing any, but I think if you have like damaged teeth, they will fix.
If they could guarantee that, and they could guarantee that I can make money with my new vampiric supernatural powers, I would think about it.
Well, I'm saying celerity.
Oh, yeah.
So, actually, that's something that Bram Stoker's Dracula didn't have in it, and that
Right.
Anne Rice unfortunately unleashed this idea. The idea that vampires can be so preternaturally quick.
I love that.
They can
Though.
do all sorts of things that before someone could blink. They're the Flash.
Right.
Basically.
Right, and I think that's represented in the show by the stopping or slowing of time.
Oh, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like for instance, in the church scene, there's a very cool way that they show that ability.
Yeah,
but
and the poker
polarity is
scene.
the thing. Oh my god, I wouldn't worry about money at that point.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
did you know? And I didn't even know this, that vampires not being able to see the sun was not part of vampire lore until the movie Nosferatu.
Oh.
So that's an interesting thing.
I believe that though, because I found out that a lot of things about werewolves too were not part of werewolf lore until the modern movies.
Yeah.
Movies about werewolves would go on, and so not all these things are. That's fascinating. That is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. So it's interesting that, now that I think about it, I don't remember Bram Stoker's Dracula ever having anything to do with light hurting Dracula. Like, he was probably walking around during the day.
He does. And actually, in the movie at any rate, and I don't remember if this is true about the book. I read the book like in high school.
Yeah.
And I don't remember it as well as I remember Interview though. But I may have read it since. But in the movie, Van Helsing is saying, contrary to popular belief, vampires can travel out in the sun, but they are powerless when they do that. And he walks around and is macking on Mina in the light.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have access to his evil powers or whatever.
Oh. So that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah. But also another thing, a weakness I've always liked about vampires, I love it, and that's from Dracula, that he always has to sleep. He has to sleep over the soil of his home country.
Right. That's an old vampire lore thing.
And so everywhere he travels, they bring crates of soil from his land.
Yeah.
I love
from Transylvania.
Yeah, what we do in the shadows. Remember that one?
The hotel episode. Oh my god!
Episode, and then where their familiar has to go around to all the different and they're from all over the damn place. Like one's from Iran, one's from
they can't sleep while they're in the hotel in Atlantic City, so they're freaking out.
Soil, and he has to literally fly there and get more soil for them.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. I love that show.
Oh God, yes, we highly recommend What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do. Did you finish this season?
I don't think I watched most of the season. I don't think I watched the last few episodes. So no, I didn't.
Definitely worth the binge.
Okay, I gotta go binge that. Yeah,
I do really love that show. But I love it because Guillermo. You remember who the person who inspired him to be a vampire was, right?
Antonio Banderas as Armand.
Armand. And he has a framed picture of him in his room.
Which is hilarious because if you know the books, Armand is supposed to be a appear as a 15-year-old red-haired ginger boy.
Right, he's very Gaelic or some kind of Celtic.
Yeah. And he's a very old vampire. And in the movie, they decided, who would be best to play that role? Antonio Banderas in his like 30s or 40s. Yeah. So it's like absolutely nothing, but he is great in that. He's very campy and fun,
Yeah.
but it's a very different vibe from the original Arma.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how all these characters are going to be adapted.
Oh yeah, I'm dying to know who's going to play him. Another thing I noticed from the trailer, so this isn't really a spoiler, but Claudia is going to be black in this show.
Yeah, because I had seen the
haven't talked about
promotional
that
art.
Yeah.
I knew that she was. So what? How do you feel about that?
I think that it's probably because Lestat knows that Louis wants a family. He wants a child.
He's gonna get a child that looks like him.
Yeah, spoiler. I mean, not spoiler alert. This is my speculation. I think something bad is going to happen to Louis' real family, his human family. Yeah, I think they're doomed, basically. And
well, remember the story, the flashbacks, which is the majority of the show, takes place in 1910, right?
Right.
But the show takes place now. As a matter of
Yes.
fact, the pandemic's happening, so it's probably 2021 or something.
Yeah.
During that time, they talk about it, right? A lot. We'll get into that in a sec. But obviously, his family could just age to death for all we know. But I think it's better if something tragic happens.
Yeah, I do think that in order for Claudia to be made, I think that Louis is going to be in a very depressed, deeply depressed place. And it's probably because his family is going to die. Yeah. This is my speculation. It's not a spoiler.
So, one of my issues, and I think I vented this before we started the episode, is I didn't like in episode 2 when they're going on about the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's mentioned in episode 1, and you're like, okay, they're acknowledging the pandemic.
Yeah.
But they actually have a conversation about the pandemic. The
right.
interviewer and Louis.
I mean, that might also be like when he talks about the convergence, right?
Yeah.
So we're not really sure exactly what he's talking about when he mentions the convergence, but it might in the future go towards the whole Akasha wants to murder everybody thing,
right.
So that might be a thing that's like foreshadowing. I do think that they make more of the pandemic than in actuality. I mean, it's possible that it was they just imagine, because I think they were writing this in probably 2020 when it was first happening. Mm-hmm. And it was more of a freak out for everybody. In our lifetime, we've never had to stay home for months on end, right? So I think they were imagining, when this airs, everybody's still going to be freaking out about the pandemic. When in fact, I mean, even though people are still dying of COVID, it's not at all like we have just forgotten about it as a society, pretty much. Other than like places like China where they're doing the extreme lockdowns.
So let me ask you, did you see X?
I did not.
The horror movie X. So for those of you who don't know, X is a horror movie about so in the 70s, some pornographers are looking for a cool place to film a porn, and they happen upon a barn, and they just go up to the owners of the barn, which is an old couple, and they're like, "Can we rent out your barn? We want to film a movie in there." They don't say what kind.
Yeah.
And they go in there, and unfortunately, craziness ensues. Right?
It's a horror movie, yeah.
Yeah, and they just did a prequel, and I just watched the prequel, of it called Pearl.
Oh.
And it's the old woman of the house and her youth, how she wanted to be in the movies, and it takes place in 1918. And guess what? They have a scene when she goes to the movies.
Oh, the Spanish flu.
The Spanish flu, and they're all wearing masks. And she's not allowed to go into the theater unless she puts on a mask because of the Spanish flu, and then she's watching the movie. And it's just a small part of it, but I was like, holy cow. And so it's just kind of shows you that there's nothing new under the sun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Funny that. But I wonder, Princess Bex, what up? Holler at your boy. I have a feeling Princess Bex, I don't know it, but I have a feeling that she is a lover of not only vampires, but Anne Rice vampires. And we, of course, are talking about Interview with the Vampire. Just premiered on AMC. But since Louis' flashback date is 1910, that means we could theoretically see him relive a pandemic.
Yes.
We could see Spanish flu pandemics.
Right. So it starts in 1910. At the end of episode 2, he mentions that 6 years have passed.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
Because he said he'd been a vampire for 6 years.
Right. So 1916, I think that it is possible that we will see some Spanish flu happenings in like the next few episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is it's so different. I do absolutely love it. Honestly, deep down in my heart, it's one of these shows that I cannot wait for the next episode.
Oh yeah.
You must have been happy when you discovered you could get another episode the same week.
Yeah, I had to subscribe to AMC Plus, which I had no intention of doing beforehand. Even though I knew that, for instance, I love Better Call Saul, I could wait till
Absolutely, I could. Yeah. Absolutely, I could.
Yeah.
Max says, "Abso-freaking-lutely." I didn't know it premiered already. It did, yo. Check it out. We've been reviewing it, and we both love it.
Yes,
we're all about that. I was all about those books when I was younger. So just to let you know, I'm not some normie who just stumbled upon it. I'm an actually hardcore fan of the original books, and I still love the updated version. I like Black Louis. I'm pro Black Louis.
Yeah, so yeah, just so you know, Matt, it's basically in the present, or maybe 2020. It's probably either 2021 or 2022 in the interview parts, and it's mostly only Eric Bogosian as Daniel talking to Louis, right? In his Dubai.
His penthouse in Dubai.
Yeah, he has a penthouse in Dubai. And what's funny, another thing that I didn't notice, but somebody on Reddit picked this up, all the art, or some of the art, because they mentioned the art by Marius, who is another character who we haven't seen yet, but is an important character later in the series. He was a mentor to Lestat, actually. So it's funny that he has a painting up by him. But anyway, so there's a specific painting in the penthouse that was stolen and never found from the Isabella Gardner heist.
Wait, what?
So let me look this up to make sure.
The creators of the show replicated a picture that was actually stolen in real life.
Yes.
And the suggestion that he bought it on the black market, and he has it
or stole.
Where all our stolen art goes, right?
Yeah. So the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. In 1990, 13 works of art were stolen, and nobody ever found them. And so yeah, one of those, I think it's a Vermeer or a Rembrandt, is in that apartment.
I love that. That's I would have never noticed that, obviously.
Yeah.
But that is amazing. I love that. I'm all about that. It makes me love the show even more.
Yeah. So obviously Louis, our poor sensitive soul Louis, but he's not really in this, but not as much at least. He's got this very underworld life, and he's very rich, as we can see,
Well, what's brilliant about the Dubai thing is because they love people with money, and they love looking the other way. And so a lot, unfortunately, a lot of, and I'm not trying to generalize about any type of people, but a lot of people who are no international criminals or do shady things do their business out of Dubai because the government will look the other way if you're wealthy.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense that a wealthy vampire would want to live there, because they're like, as long as I have money, no one's going to ask me any questions about how I live my life, if people go missing. But I know he doesn't kill, he says he doesn't kill people anymore, but he doesn't need. But I do love that. I thought that was a really great touch.
Oh yeah, like I said, there's so many little touches that I really enjoy about the show,
AJ says, had to run an errand, but catching the rest of Rogue Planet. Always a pleasure to have you, AJ. I love that Bex is a fan. Bex, please check this out. This is for the quintessential vampire lover. And I think right now, Matt's kind of like, he's not hating, but he's saying it's not for him. But I'm saying right now, I don't know. Some people say we're in the golden age of television. I think we're falling out of the golden age of television. I feel like it's getting harder and harder to have shows that I'm really can't wait for the next episode of.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I was having fun with Andor. This episode was like,
oh no. Well, okay. So I haven't.
It's not as bad as like Obi-Wan or Boba Fett, but it was just a slow go nowhere episode.
Okay. So I haven't had time today to see Andor yet, but I'm gonna see it.
It won't like offend you, but it is like I waited a week for that. We all know how She-Hulk is going, right? We all know
Yeah.
how Disney Plus in general is going, right? And so what is left? I feel like even House of the Dragon has kind of alienated me.
Oh, we could go off on that, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
We
I'm
might
saying
want to
it
save
used
it
to
for
be. I
another
used to
time.
couldn't wait for the moment.
Yeah.
I have a friend. Actually, it was Bex. Bex's show would premiere the night of House of the Dragon. I would be like, I'm not going to watch because I have to watch House of the Dragon. I'm sorry, Bex. I
You
love
mean Game of Thrones, not House of the Dragon?
No, House of the Dragon.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying Bax had a new show that was on Sundays, and thank God
Oh,
she switched
okay.
to Thursdays.
Yeah.
But I had to say, I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not missing my House of the Dragon.
Okay.
That's how I was at the beginning of House of the Dragon.
Okay, I
And
thought this was an earlier thing, but you were
Right.
meant to Game of Thrones.
Yeah, no, I mean a couple of weeks. But I'm saying within a couple of weeks, they've already alienated me to like, I'm just like, it's kind of there.
The time jumps were a mistake. That's all I'll say.
Huge
mistake. Yeah.
So what it is I'm running out of shows that I really can't wait for. I have a feeling next week Andor is going to be really good. But I feel like Andor, I feel like this, but there aren't a lot left, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And so I'm glad that this has joined our arsenal.
Yes.
For a show that I can't wait to see.
I'm really hoping that Severance doesn't fall off next season. That's one of the few now that Better Call Saul is gone that I'm looking forward to.
I think Bex is simultaneously in this stream, but also watching the earlier part because she says, I missed some Twilight slander earlier. You did.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare Twilight to Interview, come on. Right?
Yeah, I feel like, okay, so let's get this out of the way. Twilight is not as bad as 50 Shades, which was, Twilight fan fiction. But she really, Stephanie Meyer really had no idea about vampires. She was just trying to do a soft version of vampires. Like she was afraid to offend people almost with her vampires. So I will say that I read when the hype was happening, I was like, you know what? There were some haters of Harry Potter, but I enjoyed the books, even though they aren't the best literature. But they were fun. So I'm gonna check out this Twilight because there were before the movie there were already haters because it was a big best-selling, young adult novel. So Twilight, I was like, okay, this was kind of forgettable, but it was all right. And then I read was it New Moon? And I was like, okay, I like this Jacob character. Bella's kind of annoying.
You're Team Jacob, hashtag Team Jacob, is
yes.
that it?
But then Eclipse happened. And there was the vampire baby. There was Jacob bonding for
I couldn't stand the most cliche
vampire
thing ever.
Yeah.
The evil council of vampires who control the vampires' lives. It was so cliche.
The power of love fucking defeated the evil vampires.
Yeah.
Hated Eclipse so much. I was like, okay, I'm on the Twilight hate train. Before I was pretty ambivalent, but once I read Eclipse, I was like, this sucks.
So actually, when I used to live in Charlottesville, I had a gay best friend, Jeremy Snow, my man, and he was obsessed with Twilight, and I thought it was like a teenage girl thing, and then he was just like, when the movie came out, he's like, I want to go, but I have no one to go with me, and I was like, I'll go with you. So, and I went, and I actually thought the first movie was all right, other than the glitter, like the shining in the light, being glittery. I thought it was all right. I thought the movie was all right. So
yes, I do think that the movie actually was a little better than the book, just because. Okay, so I'm not hating on young adult books for girls, but Bella was very narcissistic and very annoying as a character, and she was a teenage girl, but she was very much, I'm not like the other girls.
I know. It's such a cliche at this point.
Yeah,
it's like she's just like, I'm secretly beautiful, but nobody recognizes my inner beauty.
I'm so clumsy.
Clumsy. Why would anyone want to be with me?
Yeah.
And he sees the light in me. And for starters, I gotta say, you know what that is? You know what that really sounds like? It sounds like a groomer. You know what a groomer does? I don't know if I'm allowed to use that language on this app, but whatever. What they do is they seek out the weak person or this weak kid with low self-esteem.
Yeah.
They build up their self-esteem.
Yes.
And so that's almost what that is. And it's weird that he's like 200 years old and she's like 15.
Right. So yeah, I'm just not a fan of high school, like old ass vampires going to high school to meet girls. It's the same thing as Vampire Diaries. What are you doing, buddy? Why would you want to go to high
I
school?
don't know. Why would you go to a high school if you're a 200-year-old vampire?
Right.
I'd be doing so many other things than
I'd
going
say
to
at least in Vampire Diary, Elena is the reincarnation of his love of his life. So there's that he specifically goes to high school to meet her. But the what is it, Cullen? Is it Cullen? Yeah, the Cullen family. I'm pretending I don't know. Yeah, I do know that it's Cullen.
What's this, Twilight? Twi something I've heard of?
Yeah.
You know, she's got all the books and comics and graphic novels.
Right. No, the Cullen family deliberately puts all the younger vampires into high school whenever they move. And I'm like, that's fucking torture. I would rather...
Yeah, no, you know what? They can cast for adults.
Yeah.
If someone, here's what I'm saying, they're at least at the age where someone's like, how old is this person? 17? And it'd be like, no, he's my son, he's 20. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Just walk by. They're not going to think, why is this, you know what I mean? They're not baby-faced.
Or just say they're homeschooled if you really think that they're
homeschooled. They do anything. Yeah. Could be honestly, they should be making money. I put my kids out not on the street, but I mean, like, I'm like, they have like 8 mouths to feed. I'm like, you guys are gonna you're immortal and you have superpowers. You're bringing home money.
Right, exactly.
Fuck high school. Kids, stay in school.
Yes.
Beck says, sigh, I'm sadly tired of Hot D at the moment. I feel that. I do not like the time jump. It really alienated me. Vax also said, freaking huge, referring to her fandom. My teenage girl heart is in shambles right now because we're mocking Twilight. At least 50 Shades of Grey had passionate banging, says Matt. Hashtag Team Jacob.
Vax is Team Jacob too, yes. Before he bonded with the baby, I was absolutely Team Jacob.
Mantis took one for the team, my man. Yes, exactly, AJ. That's what kind of a good friend I am, man. If my friends want to go someplace stupid, I will go. So wait, hold on. Matt says I'm not trying to, Bex. Okay. Yo, I recommend Interview with the Vampire at the end of the day.
Yes. Absolutely. Valtteri. You know what, Matt? I agree. The Valtteri should have destroyed them. They're all awful people.
They definitely use the powers for professional sports. Yo, exactly. Well, that's funny that in the Twilight movie, they use it to play baseball, right?
Yeah.
They're like clinging to trees and using celerity all over the place and stuff. And I'm like, which is a fun scene. That's a really fun scene, actually. Oh, Matt says House of the Dragon is must-watch television. I don't know what you all are talking about. Here's what it is. I don't hate House of the Dragon.
Right.
I just think that the time jump has alienated me, and I don't enjoy it as much as I used to.
Yeah, I would say, okay, so this previous week, the thing that annoyed me the most before we started talking about the plot holes at the end of this episode, the thing that annoyed me the most was the dimming the brightness for the night scene. Most of the episode was at night, and it was
filming day for night, as they call it. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
so apparently there's some images, like teaser images floating around where you can see it was bright daylight when they were filming,
right?
And then they just
for the record, it's not that uncommon. That's not that uncommon.
Oh yeah, but this was especially hard to see, and I think it took away. Like, for instance, I said that the love scene between Rhaenyra and Daemon,
the most boring sex scene I've ever seen in my life.
I said it was dry as the Dornish desert because it was awful. Neither of them looked like they wanted to be there.
Right, it was awkward. Like, there's neither of them orgasmed.
Yeah, it was very sad uncle fucking. You know
Daemon was like pretended to finish.
Yeah.
He's like, she's like, what's wrong? Nothing.
Yeah. And then the wedding too. I'm like, I don't see this. I do not.
There is no love in their eyes.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to repeat what Beck said, but you guys can all read it right there on the screen.
Yeah, that's
Oh my god. Yeah, no, but that is funny. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. It was very hard to see, and it was funny that it was also at the same time that the little kid is on the beach,
Yeah.
and they overgrown their night. Yes, they overgrown their night. As a matter of fact, I filmed I starred and edited a college film called Die. About, and I'm a fraternity pledge master who kills his pledges. It's a cheesy horror movie. We decided to film everything day for night, and it was like without like professional grade equipment. This is just old like new
Yeah.
pulse equipment. Like I got to dig it out, show it to you some point. But it was very hard doing day for night.
Yeah.
It's like super hard.
There are some shows who do it well. Matt mentions an episode of Game of Thrones. For most of the run of Game of Thrones, they were able to do night scenes where you didn't have to turn off the lights in your own home to see the scene. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Generally, what they do is have people like talk and do things near torches. They put them out on the beach.
Okay, so you know what I was
Yeah,
doing though?
yeah.
You know what I'm actually a fan of, and I think works. And I don't know if you guys find it cheesy. I prefer blue lighting.
Yes, that's another thing.
Put everyone in blue lighting and say it's the night. It's a particularly blue night, and I feel like you can get as much light on
Just
the people as needed. But
tint the screen blue. I would
Yeah.
prefer that to the just taking away all the lighting that there is.
take the exposure rating on the editing device and drag it all the way back.
Yeah, so that was my major problem with the episode. I love the kids beating up on Amy.
That would save the episode.
Yeah.
The sex scene in the latest episode of Hot D was lame because they hired an intimacy coach. Real sex doesn't have intimacy coaches. Yeah.
Also, you know what though, Matt? You're not going to find a set that doesn't have an intimacy coach.
They have to nowadays because of lawsuits. And
unless you're actually watching porn. I don't think they have intimacy coaches. Because let's be real. This is preventing lawsuits.
No, I dig that. I dig that. Trust me, there are plenty of hot sex scenes on both movies and television that have intimacy coaches. They just pull it off. I just think Emma Darcy is particularly bland and is lacking energy or passion for anything.
Right. I feel like that's another thing that's really hurting the show after the time jump is that we don't really see why the spirited, feisty young Rhaenyra has turned into this sad, depressed, whipped version of Rhaenyra.
And actually, her entire thing, this is so funny, we're off topic, but we can finish off these thoughts. Her entire thing is like she negotiates sex with him in such a raw fashion. And sex is never good like that. Yeah. She's just like, you know what? I know it's your wife's funeral, but we should have coitus. And he's like, coitus? We should. It would be good, don't you think?
Yeah, that's basically.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is happening right now?
Right. And let me tell you something. Even though there's obviously no sex scenes in The Crown, I felt that Matt Smith and Claire Foy absolutely had chemistry. Absolutely. Even when Claire Foy was obviously pissed at him, at Prince Philip, Claire Foy as Elizabeth was thinking that he had an affair with a ballerina, I felt that she was mad at him, but she still wanted to F him,
I hate to say it, and it's all right because she's like 25, so none of you throw shade my way. I think his sexual tension, even with the original Rhaenyra, I know she's younger, much younger. Rhaenyra was.
I think she's in her early 20s. She's like
I felt like you could cut the tension with the spoon, though.
Oh yeah, like I think there was a chemistry with her. Yeah, absolutely. I just think that there's nothing there. Matt, I'm telling you, all sex scenes that you see nowadays have an intimacy coach. So I mean, you're not gonna find one nowadays on any major movie set. It's part of their insurance policy, that they have to have an intimacy coach.
It used to be the days where you just have people like dude in his boxers, a chick in her underwear. They'd get under the covers and he's like, do your thing. But nowadays they make sure to have like special underwear and rubber blocking them.
Yeah.
The man has to wear a special thing to make sure that she doesn't feel his erection because they could get in trouble if he even accidentally gets erect. Like there's all these rules the way it is now. But back in the day, the director would say, "Get in those fucking sheets."
Right.
You know what I
But
mean?
I mean, just like how they have to have somebody on set to make sure that animals are protected,
Right.
there's somebody there to make sure that there's no sexual harassment going on.
Very true. It's all about lawsuit. And like you're right, back in the day, they would just say, "Bring the animal on there." They'd kill animals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now there have to be several specialists watching over the animal.
Yeah.
In
That's
way
just
you want.
yeah. I mean,
But I don't, obviously, Matt, I don't know offhand who the intimacy coaches are, or where they work, but I'll find one for you. This might be fun research.
I will say though, I'm, as Mantis knows, a fan of not season 1, but season 2 of Bridgerton, and the intimate scenes there were pretty hot, just because the actors were actually enthusiastic and had fun with it. In season 1, Regé Jean Page did not want to be there at all, and it showed. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, it was very awkward. There was a lot of sex scenes, but it was all very awkward. So I think it depends on the actors being enthusiastic and being into like embracing that they're dry humping somebody else, on a set with a bunch of people in front of them. So whether you have a intimacy coach or not, it depends on how the actor embraces the scene. I don't think Matt Smith and Emma Darcy like each other. I don't buy it. That's the problem. Yeah. So
he's really good when he can be a cocky son of a bitch. When he's somebody's high libido, since the time jump, he's low libido.
Yeah. I mean, his scenes with Lena too. I would not believe that he cares about Lena, his wife who died. Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. But getting back to Interview with the Vampire.
Yes, that's the reason why we're here.
We are going to wrap this up. Any final thoughts? Well, as long as we're on sex scenes, what did you think of the gay sex scenes?
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna, just so that everybody knows, there are butts involved, but there's no actual humping. So don't get too upset. That's in the books. Let's talk about this. Anne Rice says that vampires don't care about sex. They can get an erection, they can perform the act, but it's much like eating, in that they could, but they don't want to, because sharing blood, drinking blood, and giving it to the other person
erotic.
it's much more interesting to them than like humping. Yeah.
And then also in her vampires all emotionally become bisexual once they turn. Once they embrace.
I think that Louis is very gay. What's his name? Lestat has always been pansexual.
Right, but I think that I get the feeling that what she was saying, she's like, I got the feeling that in her books, you like who you like because of their personality and their emotions, and has nothing to do with like gender, genitals, or anything like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, well, okay, so maybe Louis is, because even though he talks about his wife and his child that he missed, you don't see that there was a great passion, but maybe he did love his wife. He kind of glances over that. But after he's turned, he's only with men. Lestat, however, he's a big old hoe and he loves everybody. He's had some great loves. One of them I won't spoil for you, but it's a doozy. And the other one is the mother of all vampires.
Right.
So he's had. You know who I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, I do know who you're talking about. But what I think is funny is, I was about to say this, that it's funny that most people put a self-insert of a character into their movies or books, but not Anne Rice. She doesn't put her self-insert it's not her self-insert. It's who she wishes she could bang. It's clear she wishes she could bang Lestat, not be him.
Yeah, I would say that.
You know what I'm saying? She has no self-insert character.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I believe you're right. I believe you're right. This is all like fantasy.
He does gain. He is like the best of the best, Lestat. He's better than everyone. He's cooler than everyone. But I think that's her vision of the guy she wants to be with. She doesn't see it as herself.
He is a rock star, and literally a rock star. But he does have failures. He does have like decades where he's eating rats and living in a hovel.
So in terms of that, and so I call Star Wars on her. I'm calling Star Wars, and here's what I think it is. I do not originally believe, if you read the original Interview with the Vampire, I do not originally believe that she was going to make Lestat as big a character.
Mhm.
I think that I think during the time he's killing all those people,
Mhm.
she did not already know that those people were evil, and he knew in his heart of hearts he
Right,
just wasn't
right.
sharing it. She decided to do that for the sequel.
Yeah.
And just like the reason why I call it a Star Wars is in New Hope, if you watch New Hope, it is clear that originally Lucas, or maybe he wasn't set on it, but it's clear that he originally did not intend Vader to be their dad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or there
Yeah,
so
yeah.
many questions would arise. Right. And I think that was later on. And I think that same thing with Lestat. That I think that and when he was living in the hovel, that was in the first book,
Right.
when he was the villain.
Yeah.
But I think she kind of fell in love with him, and then she was like, "I'm going to keep going with this guy." And you know what? He's innocent, by the way.
Yeah, she wanted to flesh him out because she kind of fell in love with him. I can see that.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that in the Suki Stackhouse Southern Vampire Mysteries, which is a long fucking title, but
Yeah.
in the books at least, she seemed to start out loving Eric Northman. You know,
Mhm.
Eric, what is his name? Alexander Skarsgård's character
Right.
in True Blood. She, even though like Suki started out with what's his name? Bill.
The guy who's
Vampire Bill, right?
Vampire Bill.
Oh yeah. She started out with Vampire Bill, but she had to have a love triangle. So here's this tall blonde Norseman who comes in, and he's a definite bad guy at first. But he's in love with Suki. Everybody's in love with Suki. And then towards the end of the series, I think she started to hate him, and she gave him a really bad ending, and even took Pam away from him. Like the ending was that he was basically like everything was taken away from him, and even Pam, he couldn't be with Pam anymore.
Right.
So it was like who was his best friend sidekick. So it was interesting where it was like a beloved character, and then she kind of decided to hate him. It was very weird.
Yeah. No, that is weird.
I think that she might have gotten tired of the series and tired of
I
everybody
got to tell you,
loving
I
him.
never read the books.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's like 12 or 13 books.
You have told me the differences, and they sound huge. Like Vampire Bill doesn't sound like the same character in either.
Oh no. They are very different.
But they also sound so ridiculous that it makes me not want to read it. Like I
Right,
don't like. I didn't like the introduction of fairies in the show, so I'm certainly not going to like it in the books. It's even more.
Yeah, let me say there's multi-dimensional traveling. There's like some sci-fi elements in the books. It's kind of weird.
I don't. To be honest, I actually think that I might, for the most part, other than werewolves, I think I like my vampires in their own little world, and I do not want them. I do not want them meeting up with all these other supernatural.
Yeah, I would accept ghosts too, kind of like
maybe
being
a
human.
mage or two, maybe a mage.
Yeah, if you can just have like vampires, ghosts, werewolves, maybe magic, but
the big three.
Not too much magic, because I think that too much magic in urban fantasy turns it into just regular fantasy.
As in what is it?
Mary Dresden, maybe?
No. What I was gonna say is in Vampire the Masquerade, White Wolf books, hedge magic, not enlightened magic.
Right.
Enlightened magic literally rewrites the fabric of reality.
Yeah.
Like it's a fairy princess. Hedge magic is like spells and rituals that you do.
Yeah.
Like banishing a spirit or something.
Yeah.
So Matt asks, who would you guys cast as Queen Akasha?
That's a very good question.
That's an amazing question because once again, this is going to start another war on the political fronts of people because people argue what color complexion Egyptians were.
Right.
As you know, that people are going to fight that. I'm
assuming. But wait 1 second. I'm going to check this because I believe that she was not originally Egyptian.
Was she not?
She was a slave that was taken to Egypt. So I have to look this up.
Oh, okay.
I honestly, because it's her story was told in Queen of the Damned, obviously, because it's about her. But she I think she's supposed to be white. I honestly think. Let me look this up.
What?
I know. It's very strange. Right?
My mind is blown right now. It's Cleopatra all over again.
So here's the thing. She was taken. I think she was a witch who was taken to Egypt and demons infested her.
Right.
She was dying, and she was turned into. Oh, okay. So they were.
Like the lamprey or whatever got her.
She and her sister were the first two vampires, and she had a twin sister. They were like witches in their own land of Kemet. Okay, so it actually is. It is a African, part of northern Africa that is not now that is, I guess, now part of Egypt, but it was a separate land from Egypt at that time. Okay.
Who was Akasha in the bad Queen of the Damned? That was a pop star.
That was Aaliyah, who's dead now, R.I.P. Aaliyah. But it wasn't she wasn't an actress. They should absolutely get a real actress to play her. I don't know who would be a good.
I'm gonna be so cliche right now, and I'm gonna say Lupita. Just because I love Lupita, and she's not in enough things.
Right, she's beautiful. Oh, you know what? Maybe I thought she was white because yes, she is stark white at this time
because she's
thousands of years old.
Yeah.
So you'd have to find somebody who probably has African features or Egyptian features, or Middle Eastern features if you want to split hairs, and who can make it work being stark white.
No, white face. Yeah. Here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you do good monster makeup, because I always thought that she was white when she came out of the coffin because she hadn't drunk for or hundreds of years or something.
Yeah.
So she was void of blood. But I'm saying I would cast a dark skin actress, and for that part when she wakes up, I wouldn't use monster makeup to make her white.
Right.
You know? I would really make it look.
Yeah, I mean, she's very much devoid of any humanity. Like all her humanity points have been used up already.
Yeah. Okay, Matt points out Lupita is too big for an AMC show.
Yeah,
you're right. I'm thinking movie. You're right. She's not going to show up for an AMC show.
It would have to be somebody who's good at, because she was a genuinely frightening villain. Because she was inhuman and devoid of care for the human race and for the vampire race.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't really know television actors that well. I wouldn't know who to say right now.
Right.
I only really think of Hollywood.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is that her sister, her twin sister, who was the second vampire, is like a feral version of her. So they have to find someone who play that too. You know, that's gonna be pretty.
I can't wait. I really hope I do get to see them on screen. Matt, who would you cast? Let me guess. The girl who played Batwoman. Or no, Leslie Grace. She's never gonna work again. So let's get Leslie Grace on that.
Poor Leslie Grace. She didn't do anything wrong except,
No, she didn't. But she participated. It's unfortunately had to be participant to like a bad movie.
Yeah.
He says, I bought a word a day calendar just for those books. Oh, because he's talking about the Sookie books. Sookie books. Because they were so complicated. Do you have any thoughts on who you'd cast as Akasha?
I'm trying to think. I think that they would probably have to find somebody, like I said, somebody who's like either like Middle Eastern or Northern African. If they want to go authentic, I don't know how they'd want to go, but it would be very interesting to see who they cast for that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what they do with this. I'm
so excited. I can't wait for next week. This is gonna be a good time. It's a Sunday show.
Yeah. I now that you mentioned it before we started, I realized that the new episode 2 will probably be up on Sunday, and for AMC Plus we'll probably get episode 3 on Sunday.
I cannot wait.
Yes.
Taona Paris maybe, but she might be too old.
Well, I love her, but I don't. Yeah, she's doing Marvel now, right?
Oh, right. That's what I'm saying. I can't really tell who's big or who's big enough, or who isn't. But it's fascinating. Do you have any? It does look like it is that time. So, do you have any final thoughts on the show? Anything you want to say to the people?
I am Gray Winthrop, one word, on Twitter and Twitch. If you want to follow me, I occasionally stream. I don't know when I'm going to stream next. Let me tell you something. I'm really enjoying true crime again. So
Oh, nice.
I might. Okay, so last podcast on the left. Shout out to them. I was doing a crime couples like a series, like for instance they did Carol Ann Fugit and Charles, I can't remember his last name, but basically the couple that uh influenced true romance and
Right.
natural born killers. But so they did them first. They're now are doing Fred and Rose West,
Oh,
you
man.
know, the
That
people
one's
that
that's heavy. I know who they are.
yeah, let me tell you something. They were very comprehensive. So it's like it's harrowing, but I'm back into true crime. Like for a while there, I think doing Grim Inquiries, my podcast about true crime, it kind of I kind of overdosed on true crime and I was feeling kind of depressed about it. But maybe it's because it's coming towards Halloween. Maybe it's because of the Adnan Syed getting out of jail.
Right.
As if you guys have know about the Adnan Syed case covered by Serial, he was released from prison,
Yeah.
and not found not guilty, but he's going to get a new case, or
A new trial or something.
new trial. That's what I mean. Yeah, so all of that probably contributed to me starting to listen to true crime again. All of that to say is that I may be doing Grim Inquiries again. I'm gonna have to find a fresh twist on true crime. I'm thinking about becoming a true crime VTuber, which I've never seen before. So maybe
That would be
somebody's
what's up,
already
man.
doing
That would be
doing it.
amazing. No,
But-
you'll beat them to it.
Yeah.
You let me know if whatever I can do to help. That would be
Okay.
great. If you
Okay,
had a
so yeah,
cartoon
watch
character
this
and
space. Maybe I'll be doing that.
telling that brutal murder.
Yes. So
I love it.
yeah, if I mean, if I can figure out the logistics of making it fresh, because there's so many true crime podcasts, I'm gonna be doing that soon. But yeah, watch Interview with the Vampire on AMC. If you enjoy that sort of thing, obviously, if you've been listening to the whole thing, give it a chance, or at least read Anne Rice's books if you hadn't, because they're great if you enjoy vampires. Or you could just read Vampire the Masquerade, or Vampire the what's the subtitle? Oh, the Requiem.
Oh, the Requiem. The Requiem's
That's
the
right.
newer one.
Yeah. So those are great RPGs if you're into
Or have
RPGs.
you on? I tend to play Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, so it's a mix, is what
Yeah,
you're
that's what
saying.
people mix the names, and they're like, because it's usually a mix. There's usually something you don't like about one and don't like about the
Right.
other. You know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah.
so you pick and choose what it is. They're very compatible.
Yeah.
So it's a good time. But awesome. Thank you for stopping in to talk about an Interview with the Vampire. I agree. It's an amazing show. It's an amazing book. It's an amazing movie. I think you guys should check it out. Give it a chance. The only thing that it requires is for you to be open to something different.
Right.
And that's why I'm fine with adaptations and retellings.
Yeah.
As long as they're not offensive.
Yeah, I think that. Okay, so I usually, my thing is, the further from the book, the more likely they're going to mess it up, right? This has happened with Game of Thrones. It happens all the time with adaptations. I think that so far, this is a fresh take that is faithful to Anne Rice in spirit. And I think that she would absolutely approve. This is something that she would do in 2022.
I agree. The spirit, you gotta have the spirit has to be there.
Yeah.
But the information can be different as long as the spirit is there.
Yes.
I absolutely agree. 1,000% agree. But yo, Gray Winthrop, thank you for stopping in on Rogue Planet. Thank you everybody in the chat, everyone who has stopped by. Thank you for making this show amazing. Keep tuning in to Voice of the Fat Mantis. Happy 5th night of Halloween. We're still going to keep doing streams. I'm going to try to stream every day if I can. Some sort of Halloween-y stuff. We're going to have a lot of fun this weekend. AJ says, stay safe, everybody. You too, brother. Thank you for stopping in. I love you all. And remember to keep tuning into both Voice of the Fat Mantis as a YouTube channel and Rogue Planet every Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern-ish. Until next time, ciao for now, guys.